Amateur hour over here without the airplane mode on the phone.
Sorry.
It's like you've never done a podcast before.
I'm very tired.
It's all right. Hey, so welcome to While She's Napping. I am Adam.
And I'm Cindy.
And so last week, our episode on cancel culture is by far our best episode to date.
Mm-hmm.
It got the most downloads, the most tractions. Well, the most traction, no plural. Most listens, everything. By far our most successful episode to date.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was fun, and I think we've had some good conversation since.
So much so that we took to the Facebook and Instagram polls, and we asked you listeners, what do you like to hear from us? So, as I mentioned on last episode, I don't want to say the subject matter, but the direction of this podcast sort of shifted from when we first started, what we thought it was going to be. And that's par for the course with any podcast that you start. It typically doesn't stay in the same direction that you anticipate from the beginning. So we asked you, what do you want to hear from us? Do you want funny and lighthearted? For example, the 90s episode or the Rhode Island episode? Or do you want something along the lines of a sociological / philosophical conversation in which there's an argumentative point that Cindy and I either share or we disagree on and we talk about it?
Or just addressing current events.
Sure.
Social issues and stuff like that.
And you guys...
Super helpful.
Made it difficult by going 50-50.
On both Facebook and Instagram.
Split 50-50.
Yep. So we're just going to move forward, continuing to kind of alternate the content of the episodes. And we'll, if there's a good, current events type subject that seems timely, like cancel culture was last week, we'll take a stab at that. And otherwise, we'll revisit some of the ideas we had when we first started the podcast that are some of these more lighthearted, just sort of, and have more direct connections to parenting. Although I feel like part of the reason why we maybe have taken a shift away from that is because we only have one child who's 2, so we don't have extensive experience as parents in the first place. So we definitely have things to say about how the last 2 years have gone for us. But I feel like we have a lot more to learn. And I'm sure as things come up, as she grows up, we'll have more content related to our parenting experiences too. Again,
amateur hour over here.
Yeah.
It is kind of pretentious, right? Hey, we have a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Start a podcast. I think we pretty much know everything we need to know about parenting.
I think it's kind of fun for us to talk about things, and especially whenever we make predictions, it'll be fun for us to be able to go back and listen to what we thought when she was a toddler, when she's a teenager or something.
Or she listens to it.
Yeah. We'll
You
realize how little we
anything.
knew. Yeah.
I'm not doing any of this stuff.
Right.
Anyways, so the result of the poll, from what I'm gathering, is it's an indirect way of saying keep doing what you're doing. The subject matter that we cover on a weekly basis may not be for everyone, right? And specifically this week, it may not be for you, but that doesn't mean you can't jump around and look at, into the archives and pick out an episode that you think might interest you, especially if you're a new listener. Or you can just sort of, here's what I recommend you do. Still download it, still play it, just turn the volume down. So we have the play, we have the play count and the download. Mm-hmm. That's, you don't have to participate.
And contact us if you have an idea, if you have a topic that you really are interested in, you'd like to hear us talk about, you can email us. Should I do it out of order?
No, let me,
go ahead.
All right. Yeah, sure. Let's go over the socials. If you want to hit us up on Facebook, you can, facebook.com/while she's napping. If you want to hit us up on Twitter, it's @she'snappingpod. If you want to hit us up on Instagram, it's @while she's napping. And as Cindy said, if you want to email us,
while she's napping @gmail.com.
You can tell us what you think we should talk about. And I don't say that with any sort of sarcasm. I'm serious. If you have any ideas or any suggestions you'd like to throw our way, we appreciate it. And having said that, this is the definition of serendipity this week, because each week Cindy and I are asking ourselves, okay, what the hell are we going to cover next week? What are we going to talk about next week? And we sort of stress out about it in the beginning of the week. And then come the middle, one of us suggests something and we just roll with it. So Tuesday or thereabouts, I said, we should cover what has changed in our lives since becoming parents. And Cindy was saying, I don't know. That's sort of, I don't know how much I can contribute to that. And I said,
I feel like we covered some of it in the pregnancy and birth episode.
But I was saying, maybe we should just keep that in the back pocket. Mm-hmm. And then you put up on the Instagram polls, what do you want us to hear? And my buddy reaches out to us
with the exact
idea. Same suggestion with a little nuance. He wanted to know how to affect the marriage or impact or change the marriage.
Right, our dynamic as a couple.
So we're going to take it a step further. We're going to talk about how this has impacted and changed us as a couple. And we're also going to discuss how it has impacted and changed us as individuals, as well within our social lives. Mm-hmm. Both individually and as a couple. But before we do that, I just want to get some house cleaning out of the way. If you're listening to us for the first time, welcome. If you found us via Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, I know a lot of people have discovered us on Reddit. Shout out to Reddit. You guys are great. Or any other social media means, maybe Twitter, you stumbled upon us. Welcome to the show. And what do you have to lose? Just subscribe. Subscribe to our show, and if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please give us 5 stars and a quick review. It helps us out a lot. We appreciate the support. We appreciate the downloads and listenership and the participation if you want to get in contact with us. We'd like to thank the U.S., India, Canada, Nepal, United Kingdom, Brazil, and Spain. Specifically within the U.S., shout out to Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Florida, California, Arizona, New Hampshire, New York, Virginia, Connecticut, Louisiana, and parts unknown. And what's cool about parts unknown is that we know it's in the U.S. because Podbean tells us it's in the U.S.
Yeah.
So we just got to find it. Can't be that hard. So yeah, if you're listening to us for the first time and you're interested in the subject matter, welcome. Having said that, so you want to have a baby. You're thinking about having a baby. Let's do this in my Rhode Island accent. You're thinking about having a kid.
Kid.
So how do you want to break this down? Do you want to do half social and individual and then the other half as married couple? All right.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing, we'll save the married couple for last because, why ruin the main event? The biggest thing that I have noticed that has changed since having a child, 2 years. And I think 2 years is a nice little barometer to think about how things have changed. I'm not a social person to begin with. I'm not a very outgoing person in the sense of actually physically going somewhere. I try to find ways to actively avoid it. But this has definitely limited the ability to go certain places. And again, I want to preface this that I don't regret anything. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I don't regret having our child, obviously. I don't think to myself, oh man, if she wasn't here, then I could do XYZ. Never has crossed my mind until right now, saying that sentence. But I have noticed that the ability to do certain things freely has been extremely limited when it comes to going to parties, going out late at night. It's just not the same. So I would say that the biggest thing as an individual that has affected me since becoming a dad is a lack of a social life, kind of. I mean, I don't mean that as a bad thing.
Yeah, which has been further compounded by the pandemic.
Sure, yeah.
But it's kind of funny whenever I think about that, the situation we've been in with COVID. Things have changed. Certainly, we haven't seen people as often as we normally would. But on the other hand, sometimes I think about it, I'm like, how different is this really? Because we weren't super social since our daughter was born anyway. So in some ways, I feel like it's not as impactful for us because we already felt like we were doing less social things already. But still, yeah, I feel like there are times when we used to go out. There was one of the memes that I posted was like, so I'll pick you up at 10 at night.
Yeah.
Like, that's so true. Like, I remember I used to go every Friday night for a while. I went to karaoke with a few friends for a few years. We did this was like our weekly thing where we got together and all went out. And it didn't start until 9. And if you got there at 9, you were like a loser because like it didn't start, like it didn't really start until like 10:30, 11 o'clock is when most of the crowd would arrive. And then you stay till the place closed at 1. And thinking about that, just the thought is so exhausting. Of
doing anything past 9.
Mm-hmm. I stayed up till like 11 last night and I'm hurting.
Champion.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a little hungover.
I could have gone without that third glass of wine.
I think I only had 2 drinks and there you go.
This was our big party night. We each had like 3 drinks and we stayed up till 11 watching reruns of Everybody Loves Raymond. And now this morning we're like dead. Yeah.
I will say that on top of the social life being limited, it's really hard. And again, I don't mean this disrespectful. I don't mean this in the sense of we're picking and choosing who we hang out with. That's not necessarily how I mean this. It's more of what is convenient when it comes to a social gathering that could include our daughter. So if there's a party or something outside of a pandemic, of course, if there's a party or something happening and there are no kids there, it's either find a babysitter or don't go, because you can't really bring the child there if there are no children for her to play with. Right? You need her to do something. And if the two of us are just going to be mom and dad the whole time, we're not really participating in the party. Again, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but at the same time, if we're going to go to a party, we want to enjoy the party. And I've noticed that since having a child, we actively look, okay, are there any kids going to be there, or is any other parents going to be there? And if not, it's a very difficult undertaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely, especially when she was young, even younger than she is now, we also had to work around her nap time. That makes it difficult, even for like a daytime get together, if it's like a cookout or something, especially when she was really little, she had 2 naps. So it's like you had a very limited window of time where we could actually go anywhere. And she's the kind of kid where I know there are some kids who are more flexible, but if she missed a nap or her schedule gets off, it is just a disaster. Yeah. It's always been that way. So we've always had to be pretty strict with how we juggle our schedule and make sure that she's able to take a nap at the time that she's used to, because if she doesn't, we are in for it when it comes to bedtime. So that's always been a challenge. And one of the reasons why it's, unless we have someone to stay with her the whole day, we even have to we would miss out on even daytime things, not even late night social parties. Like, that was always something to consider that we never had to contend with before.
If you're not a fan of routine, and if you're not a big regimented person when it comes to like sort of, again, I don't mean this as a bad thing, but the Groundhog's Day effect of your day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's like a huge buzzword, routine. That's something that's changed big time for us. You've always been a very routine kind of person. I think I have too, to some extent, but not like I am now. No. Without the routine, it just crumbles.
So that's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed is that within my social life, having to planning things in advance is clutch. If there's a group get together, I'm just saying things, I don't know, randomly here. So if there's a fantasy football party, like we do a fantasy football get together. I know that's what you're
going to say, because that's the only like big social thing that gets planned for us. That we do every year.
Fantasy football party at the end of the year to celebrate the new champion and whatnot. We have that penciled in on the calendar months in advance, and we already have a babysitter for that night, and we say, this is our night out. And it's circled, and we're ready to go.
It's like that and weddings.
Yes. Yes. And look, I think this is more common now, or maybe we're just, because we're parents, we're paying more attention to it. of kids being invited or quote unquote allowed at weddings. I'm not sure I'm there quite yet, feeling comfortable with my daughter there, not out of any, sense of concern. It's just, again, if we want to go to a wedding, we want to enjoy the wedding.
Right. And if it's an evening wedding, it's going to be a late night.
Right. Or an early night for us.
Right. We would have to leave early, or we'd have to really push it with her bedtime. And then again, we'll pay for that for several days, getting her out of her schedule. So
if you're a big fan of going out late, starting the party at 10, like, this is the time I would like to go home now at the age of 34.
Absolutely.
But if you like to start the party at 10 and do pre-games and then go out and hit the clubs, maybe having a kid is not in the cards right now.
Or just be ready to change that.
Yeah, on a dime.
Yeah.
And again, I'm willing to make these sacrifices, obviously, because in the grand scheme of thing, I did a lot of this.
Yeah, we're in a different season now.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like for a while, even in the few years leading up to when we decided to have a family, we were kind of already over it. That kind of late night partying, going out, like the bar scene, the club, that was never a thing for us, really. I mean, for me, the karaoke was like my big thing. We never went to the club, but we never went out dancing. That wasn't a big part of our life anyway. It was more, house parties, social gatherings, cookouts, things like that, game nights, even stuff like that.
And even those would last sometimes till...
Oh, we would stay up really late fighting over Monopoly.
Yeah, good job. And now we can't, because come 10 o'clock, especially in my case, I wake up at 4, so it's 10 o'clock is pushing it. That's the absolute latest.
Right. And we know we're going to get, we have a human alarm that's going to go off at 6 o'clock or maybe 6:30 the latest. So it's not like you get to sleep in. I mean, sometimes we'll plan ahead of time. Like one of us is going to be, in charge so the other one can get some sleep and catch up. But again, you have to plan that.
Right. And I remember when we were just starting to talk about having a child and planning for it, we were talking about how difficult this might be, and how, again, you just referenced how things might not necessarily change as drastically as we were anticipating, and they sort of didn't. But I remember saying to myself, we have a cat. I think we're good. I think that's good practice.
We already have a child. We have a fur baby.
We have a cat that, you have to feed it and you have to do stuff with its poop. So I think we're good. I think we're pretty well prepared.
Yeah.
Nope.
I will say that people who have dogs, I think it's a little bit different. Like there's way more responsibility with the dog, and the routine, I think, is important and stuff like that. And one of our friends had commented that the cartoon that I had posted about, if you wake up the baby, I'm going to rip your face off. Yeah. She's like, I said that to my husband this morning about the dog, because it's like the same thing. Like, don't disturb them. They're finally relaxed and not barking and being quiet and whatever. So there's definitely similarity, but it's definitely not the same, not on the same level.
No. So that's basically the extent of how things have changed for our existing relationships. With new friendships, and again, I don't really make any because I don't really want new friends, but with new relationships, it's sort of like you have to ask yourself, are they parents? And typically you aren't in a situation where you hang out with people that aren't parents, because the majority, if not all, of your social gatherings, your child is included. So if you're invited to something, typically it's with someone else, it's by someone else rather, that has a child, and you get there and you see these new groups of parents, and of course you're just saying to yourself, okay, who is the person I can mingle with? Who's the new person I can just talk to just to get through this? I know it sounds like a chore, but you want to socialize.
Well, and it might stick. Like, I mean, as she gets older.
What has stuck?
Okay, she's only 2, first of all. And what I'm saying is I have made some new friends of, moms of her friends. Again, she's only 2, but like other kids at daycare or her dance class, stuff like that. I mean, I've been in contact with new people that I've met through her activities or her school, and that's going to keep happening as she gets older. She's going to make friends when she goes to school, when she does different activities or sports or whatever, and we're going to end up having to interact with those kids' parents, and maybe we'll click and make new friends. Who knows?
Right. The underlining theme here, if you haven't picked up on it, is that everything, when you have a child, everything that you do, your child comes first in that decision, right? You think to yourself, okay, for lack of a better way to put it, can I make this work or squeeze my daughter into this? Is this conducive with myself being a parent? And if it's not, 9 times out of 10, you sort of ditch it. If it is, you embrace it.
Right.
So this sort of leads into the individual aspect. I know for me, the biggest thing that has changed is lack of privacy. If you like, I'm just going to go out and say,
especially now we're in potty training.
Yeah. If you like going to the bathroom in peace, don't have a child because
or showering by yourself.
That little one is going to come in and yay, daddy.
She cheers for you. It's true.
Yay, daddy.
Well, and it's so during potty training, I find it funny that you have to find the balance between demonstrating using the potty. So she wants to do it because you want her to want to be like mommy and daddy and use the potty the way that we do and get her into that habit. But then there's the fine line between this understanding that it's also a private thing and you can't just like walk in on anyone who's going potty and start clapping for them.
Right.
Like that happened. One of our nephews did that to me once. We were getting together and, my sister-in-law was like, oh, sorry. Yeah, we're potty training. He hasn't learned yet that it's not standard to watch each other go to the bathroom because he never goes by himself. Someone's always there watching him and cheering him on. So yeah, there's a fine line there.
It's gotten to the point. All right, so our bathroom does not have a lock. And that is, if you're buying a house on top of this, make sure there's a lock on the bathroom door or put one on. Maybe we should have done that already.
We should put one of the doorknob thing. We have one on the door that goes to the stairs for her safety so she doesn't open the door. We should just put one on the bathroom.
That's another
Why
thing.
didn't we think of that before?
I don't know. This is the benefits of podcasting. But if you enjoy your privacy, showering and stuff, again, you don't think about this because the first year and a half, you're like, oh, I'm coasting. This is great. She or he is down for the nap for the first time. Great. 2 naps, guys. When you're in that 2 nap phase, embrace that. Embrace the shit out of that. Because once it gets cut to 1 nap, you have approximately a 6-hour gap in the morning, and then what is it, like a 5-hour gap after the nap. So
you have to keep them entertained for longer periods of time.
Yes. I remember when she was young, that first nap, she'd wake up for maybe 2 hours in the morning, and then all right, that nap is soon. I can push through this 2 hours.
Yeah,
and
she would nap at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning.
And you sit on the couch, and the baby's in your arm napping. You just throw on Netflix. You watch whatever you want. There's another thing. You cannot watch what you want anymore. You just can't. You see something fun on Netflix? Nope. Sesame Street, please. And you know every single Sesame Street song. You'll know every segment. I know all about Mr. Noodle with Elmo's World. You know it all. The whole sense of autonomy when it comes to you watching your program, no more. As long as that child is awake, and if you want to have your child watch TV, we try to limit it as much as possible. But you just can't have that freedom to just put on what you want anymore.
Same thing in the car. You can't listen to your own music or podcast. You have to listen to whatever she wants.
Especially when the child learns how to talk.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say. So when she was younger, it wasn't as big of a deal. Like I used to listen to my true crime murder podcast in the car when she was like, a few months old or whatever, because she didn't understand it. It didn't affect her and she didn't care. And she was probably just going to fall right asleep anyway in the car seat. But now can't play, like she's going to start repeating whatever's being said on the radio.
Everything.
Yep.
So, your sense of individual autonomy for how you want to go about your daily, routines definitely change, and you make it work. I know I talk about how, I don't want to say often, but I do bring up how I wake up in the morning to work out. It's because I don't have that time anywhere else.
Right.
It's the only time I can do it is that earlier in the morning. It's the only time I can use that's carved out. At night, we're after dinner, we're entertaining her, or we're playing with her, or she's oftentimes entertaining us, and with whatever.
Well, we're cleaning up, we're doing the dishes, and mealtime is basically like a tornado went through the house of whatever it was that she ate that night. Like it's a huge mess to clean up every night. And then we also have to, when she's in daycare, prepare her lunch and her bag and everything for the next day. And it's just, there's no time.
If you want to make time to do something for yourself, you have to do it based on pretty much when the child's sleeping or when your partner, assuming you're doing this as a couple, has time available to sort of take over.
Yeah, you have to tag team.
I remember when you were going to dance on Monday, you would say, you got this. And I said, I'm not scheduling any sort of shows, no podcast, nothing on a Monday.
My night.
Right. And we would do, for my other podcast, we would carve out a night to do it at that point. But you also have to understand that a lot of the things that you were able to do just leisurely, you can't anymore. So,
oh my God, like showering.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or even getting ready. Like yesterday, I took a shower and did my hair. And I think I put on some like mascara. And you were like, why are you getting dolled up? I'm like, I literally just put mascara on and I'm blow drying my hair because I want to feel like a person. Yeah. Like, and I wasn't even going anywhere. I went down to my office just to print some things when nobody would be there on a Saturday. And I wasn't going to see another human being. Like, just because you were available to watch her and I knew I had like a half hour where I could just take my time and get ready and like have a routine was very luxurious.
Yeah. But the things that you would do for, I guess, outside of your job and stuff, I guess extracurricular, even though we're not in school, but like remember we used to play softball and basketball. When we would look up, okay, do we want to do rec basketball? Can we have one of our moms watch the child while we're playing basketball? It's okay, we could have some games, and most of them, let's face it, were, for some reason, we always got the later time, started at 9. And we're thinking to ourselves, we can't do that because she's in bed before then. So what are we going to do? Go to your mom's, drop her off, wake her up, come back home, put her down. It's just,
or someone would have had to come here and stay with her. But again, on a weeknight that late, it's hard for a family member too who has to get up and go to work in the morning. So
same thing with softballs on Sunday. We would have softball Sunday usually fell in the middle of the afternoon. First of all, that's nap time. Second of all, when you again have a child, that nap time is get shit done time. Or do a podcast, get shit done time. So you rely on that nap time to clean the house, mow the lawn if you have a lawn to mow, or just to tidy up, go to the grocery store, do what you have to do while the partner or your husband or wife, whatever, stays home to make sure that child doesn't wake up early. That's another thing. Hour naps are the worst.
I know. It's they're like just enough time to start doing something and then and we only have one. I think about this, like I always say how challenging this is, and I know there are people who have more kids or who have twins, and I can only imagine trying to get them on synced up nap schedules and stuff so that you do have that designated time. But everything has to be planned. You have to prioritize. It's like, okay, I know I have like the next 2 hours or so. What am I going to do? And there have been times, especially when she was younger, I remember when she used to always say, sleep when the baby sleeps. Everybody tells you that. And when she was first born, those first few months, there's not even like the 2 nap thing. She just sleeps on and off throughout the whole day. And when she'd fall asleep, I'd just be overwhelmed by all the things that I want to do. I'm like, do I take a shower? Do I have something to eat? Do I do the dishes? Do I, whatever, wash her bottles? Like, do I do laundry? Like, what do I do? I have so many things. Right. And it's just, I don't even really remember how I ended up getting through it, but I did finally, I don't know what it was. Someone said something to me that really resonated, and I just decided if I'm tired, the first thing I'm going to do is sleep.
Sleep, right.
And everything else I'll just do later.
Yeah. It's the other thing too of when you decide, okay, this is the time I'm going to do whatever it is you're doing when the baby naps, it has to be quiet. It can't be a loud thing that you're doing.
Well, right? It depends. I remember when we were even setting up her nursery, we were hesitant to put her crib on the wall where it is now because it's the wall that shares the wall with the bathroom and the shower. And I was like, I'm afraid if one of us is taking a shower or if I'm blow drying my hair or doing something like that while she's asleep in her crib, it might wake her up. And I remember
that's more like a white noise thing.
it is, right. So, but I remember we were really nervous about noise in the house because all the bedrooms are on the same floor and it's pretty
Right.
small and stuff like that. And I remember we did get the advice of don't worry about noise when they're really little. You want them to be used to noise.
I think
so that you
consistent
can.
noise, but it's not like I can go build something.
No, if you have a
while
big,
she's
like
napping.
a loud bang or something, yeah.
Yeah,
But like vacuuming or like
or mowing the lawn. or
yeah,
something.
stuff like that. You don't want them to. You don't want to tiptoe around too much when they're first born and when they're really little because you want them to be able to sleep through noise.
Right. And I don't know. For me, I know I started the other podcast before she was born, but in the back of my mind, I know for a fact someday that's going to end and it's going to be when my daughter says, Daddy, don't do podcast, play Tea Party with me.
She's already
It's
started
over.
doing that now. Just in the last few weeks, her new thing is even when we're sitting at the dinner table and she's done eating, she'll say, and you and I are talking to each other, she says, no talking, no talk, no talk,
phone,
no phone.
no
when I'm
dishes.
working, because I'm working from home right now, if she sees me on my computer, she's, Mama, no work,
no
dishes, no laundry. Whenever we're trying to do something and multitask while she's awake and wants to play, she tells us, no, don't do that.
Yep.
Pay attention to me. And I think there's a balance. I mean, we want her to feel like we are paying attention to her and she's important and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. And I don't want to blow her off, but at the same time, I also want her to be able to, entertain herself to some extent and have, independently play and
Of course.
things like
Of
that. But I
course.
also know it's hard because has limited interaction with other kids and family members and everything right now. So it's a fine balance.
Yeah, again, as a person that does multiple podcasts, I have to schedule the ones without you to say, when is my daughter sleeping? Like, can I get this in at 8:00?
Right.
Can I, and on top of editing, on top of that, I'm just hitting that 10:00 mark when I'm like, okay, it's time for bed. I got to do this. And eventually that's going to get exhausting. And eventually, I'm only illustrating this not to, give a eulogy to my projects here, but it's more of a way to say to you, person that is thinking about having a kid, things are going to change. Things are going to shift. It's welcomingly for me, it's no longer all about me. And you have to have that mentality is that the things that you love to do, you may not be able to do. And it should be, I think, and again, I'm not trying to tell anybody how they should feel, but for me, it should be because you love your child more than that. You love your child more than that thing that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. But I do think it's important to carve out time for yourself and to do the things that you love to do. And, having a supportive partner or supportive family or friends or whatever is what's going to allow you to do
know what
that.
you should do? You should start a podcast while that child naps and call it something about napping.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something with your partner. All right, let's take a break right here. When we come back, we'll talk about how it has impacted our marriage. This was the question. Hang tight.
So we were just talking about how having a supportive partner is kind of, critical, or not just a supportive partner. If you have a supportive family member, you have, good friends who are there to help you and be able to help you hold it together and keep your sanity and still be able to do the things.
You are not that Adam.
Yeah, no.
I wish I had that Adam.
No, I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily. I'm speaking more for like if you're a single parent. I'm saying you're not going to crumble and fall apart. It's going to be hard, and you're a freaking hero if you're a single parent. But I remember thinking that when she was first born, like, how the hell does anyone do this by themselves? I was so grateful for having my close friends and family and other parents that we knew that I could lean on and ask questions, and to have you be around to help. I just don't know how I would have done it by myself. But yeah, I think that's something that has allowed our relationship to grow. I think we've gotten better at kind of respecting each other's needs and being, we have a common goal. Like both of us are always prioritizing our daughter, and whatever we need to do to support the other person to be able to be successful for her and to make sure she has what she needs and she's well taken care of. I think that has, in a lot of ways, improved the dynamic in our marriage.
I do think there is some residual implications from what we just talked about, individual impacts of having a child and how they can affect a marriage. There's a lot of cross-pollination in there. But if we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, again, it does take a really good, solid foundation in a marriage to make raising a child work, I think. And that seems like an obvious thing to say, but in terms of being able to compromise is huge. And that I can't overstate that, really. You have to learn how to make concessions, and in order for your partner to have a sense of sanity and a sense of a quote unquote break from, the I don't want to say the mundane nature of raising a child, but the repetitive routine nature, sort of break out of that and do stuff for yourself or herself or himself, whatever. You have to sort of take the ball and say, I got this for the day. Do what you got to do. I remember when nail salons opened up, you still wanted to wait because of the pandemic, but you said, hey, this date I'm getting my nails and hair done. I said, okay, I got it for the day. I got that. That's fine.
Yep.
And that seems obvious, but again, when you have pretty much just a weekend to get things done, it is difficult because then you have to make concessions of, all right, well, this is not going to get done in the house, but you understand at the end of the day, it can wait. It can wait until later or something, or it's not a priority. Or you say, okay, well, when you get back, I need to sort of pick up on this. So pick up where I left off.
Right. I think we've gotten better at communicating in that sense because you just have to. Yeah. Like there's so many logistics and scheduling and just making sure we're on the same page with what she needs. And like, for example, this whole past week I was home with her. And so, but then you're the one who's going to bring her to daycare this week. So anything that's happened, like if she learned she hates a new food, or if there's like, I don't know, anything, like any weird tics or habits or like the any new words she's picked up on that we need to warn daycare about, stuff like that, we have to make sure that we communicate about it. And it's funny, there's so many things that she does now and so many new things all the time that sometimes I completely, like when it happens, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to tell you about this when you get home. And then I forget because there's so many. And then like a week later, she'll do it or she'll say whatever it was again. And you're like, oh my God, she just blah, blah, blah. And I'm she did that like a week ago.
Totally.
Where have you been?
I forgot to videotape it.
Yeah.
Videotape. I forgot to record it. It is true when, you're juggling everything with the child. You're trying to, create this family dynamic as you should. But then when, the child goes to bed, you may have an hour to tell your partner everything you need to. And at that point, you're battling, what do I have to tell you? What was it? And I am just so fucking tired.
Yeah,
you're
trying to just like do a brain dump before you lose it.
And there are times when you say, oh, I forgot to tell you this. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. And I'm just like, I am so fucking tired right now. I am not.
Or there are times when
receiving any of this.
Or you're like, oh, don't forget, like you have to, call the doctor in the morning or there's something. And I'm like, okay, well, remind me to remind you to remind me. Like text me in the morning to remind me to call. And if I haven't told you I've done it 2 hours later, text me again. Yeah. But it's like it takes both of us to remember to do things sometimes because it just falls through the cracks.
So the whole, I'm not saying the way it was before was better or worse, but it's definitely different because before you have a child, it's all about the two of you. It's all about hey, what are we doing? What do you want to do? Where do you want to eat? How do you want to go about the weekend? Do you want to go here? You have this unlimited sense of freedom. And again, I don't want to make it sound like my child has restricted that, but again, it's no longer about you. That's the thing that is the best way I can put it. If you are willing to know that everything nothing comes before your child, not even your marriage comes before your child, it's way easier to plan to have a child that way. Once you're willing to embrace that notion that your child comes before absolutely everything, or your children come before absolutely everything, then I think you will have a good sense of how to navigate that. I don't know if you have a sense of, well, I still want to do this. Well, I still want to have this sense of XYZ. I don't know that you're able to do that really with a child. And again, maybe the dynamics of your personal relationships are different than ours. I can only base it on my experience. But my child, for me personally, comes before everything. And in fact, now everything I do has a motivation of my child behind it.
Yeah, I think it's, you said not even the marriage comes before your child. I think that's true. I mean, she's the first priority for everything, and everything, it revolves around her and doing what's best for her. But at the same time, I think it's kind of cliche, but it's also true that, and you said it earlier, you have to have a strong foundation to be in your relationship to be successful in parenting.
Right.
And I think in that sense, having a child, I think, has motivated us to try to be more proactive about our relationship.
Yeah.
And our marriage. And because there's a huge driving force. Like, we want to set a good example for her. We know that we're better parents when we do it together, and neither one of us can do it alone. And I think we've gotten better at, sort of, or at least I feel like I've gotten better at admitting where my strengths are and where they're not. And not
I don't
trying
have any
to,
strengths. So.
You always say shit like that. No, there are some things that we've talked about it before, how I can be kind of a control freak, and I have a lot of anxiety about things, and that's an ongoing process, but I think I'm starting to get better at letting go a little bit and recognizing where there are some things that you can just do better than I can, and I need to just let you do that. Mm-hmm. and not try to be, doing it all myself all the time. Right. But that's something, when she was first born, that was intense for me. The feeling of like the overwhelming nature of the responsibility of having another human being that you need to keep alive. Yeah. And like nurture and care for and raise and all that was so overwhelming to me. I'm sure it is to everybody.
It still is.
Yeah. It still is. And in the beginning it was really intense, but yeah, so from that perspective, and I don't want it to come off like I'm saying, well, if your marriage or your relationship is struggling and you add a child, you'll be better. Like, it's not going to fix your relationship.
No, there should never be a time, in my personal opinion, there should never be hey, what can fix us? Oh, we should have a child.
Yeah, I think that it's brought us closer together in a lot of ways, and I think there are things about our relationship that have improved because we have her, and because, like I said, we have this common goal, and we both have the same priority in our minds and the same driving force. Right. But I don't think if our relationship had really been struggling, right before she was born, I don't think we would have been as successful.
No, and I don't mean this to be sound like a negative thing, but this goes along with the I don't want to say lack of freedom, but in a way, a lack of freedom to just do whatever the fuck you want. The dating period, quote unquote, of the relationship when it's just you and your partner changes. That is, I don't want to say it's eliminated entirely, but again, everything is about your child. So when we have a date night, again,
pre-pandemic.
Yes, pre-pandemic. We were actively saying to ourselves, once a month, let's have a date night. Once a month, we'd go out, and then we'd talk about our child.
Pretty much. That was the brain dump.
It's either we're talking about work or about our child, but at the same time, it's because that's your world, or at least it is our world, where it's we talk about things of how we're going to handle this. What are we going to do about this? What kind of changes are we going to make to the house? Last night we were debating, all right, do we want to move or do we want to make upgrades to the house? And we're still kind of on the fence about it, but it was all about how does this affect our child? How is this going to benefit our child? It's not about benefiting us anymore.
Yeah, in the past, I think when you think about what your dream house is like or where you want to live before you have kids, I mean, maybe kids are in your, in the vision that you have too, but still, I think it's like, oh, well, I would love to have, a jetted tub or like some I don't know, or like a backyard that has a hammock where I can lay and read and like
all that's gone.
But it's not necessarily gone, but it's now the priority is it's some basic things to make our lives more functional, like we need a friggin' dishwasher, stuff like that. But it's like, okay, are we going to have enough bedrooms for each of if we end up having more children? We would like for them to each have their own bedroom. If not, would they share a bedroom? For how long?
Or what happens if we say, okay, one more child, then oops, twins.
Oh God. They don't run in our family, so that's unlikely.
No,
but
I'm just saying, these are the things you prepare for.
We had a genuine conversation about, well, if we were still living here and we decided to just do some remodeling and some upgrades, we're still only going to have 3 bedrooms. So what would happen?
Right.
What would we do? How do we organize that? And yeah, I mean, some of it we might be stressing out and being anxious for nothing, but that's kind of, especially you work that way. You go through every hypothetical situation in your head. But I like planning too, so it works out. But yeah, it was the focus of the conversation is, are our kids going to have what they need? Are we satisfied with the school?
Yes.
Are we satisfied with the schools in the town where we currently live? Or are there other places that would be more desirable? And how much would it cost if we decided to send to private school? And
I remember when we were looking at houses before her, we were saying to ourselves, we need a half-hour split, or we need to make the commute split evenly. Now it's, I don't give a fuck where we live. We just need to make sure that it's a good school system.
Yeah, that was my biggest thing, because I commuted an hour each way for about 6 years.
And in Rhode Island, that's a big thing.
That's the whole length of the state.
Yeah.
I drove from one side of the state to the other.
But people are listening.
They're like, oh, that's not no big deal. Yeah,
it's
true. No, but we're spoiled because we're from Rhode Island, and anything more than 10 minutes is like a journey. But yeah, and then when we were first looking for houses, that was a big deal for me. I was like, I'm so sick of this commute. I hate using all this gas. I feel guilty for my carbon footprint, and it's super annoying. And now
let's just get the house we need for the child.
Especially if it's because of the situation we have where you do the daycare drop off and pick up. If we moved somewhere that was closer to daycare, which would also be closer to your work, whatever, if I have to drive an hour in the opposite direction to get to my office, so be it. But it would be better for her, would be closer to where she needs to be. And if we were in a better school district or whatever the case is, my commute is whatever. I would actually probably enjoy it now. An hour to listen to a podcast in a quiet car.
It does sound awesome.
That sounds awesome.
Let's wrap it up with this. I think this is we're a married couple podcast. We need to touch on it. You need to plan your intimacies in a way. I don't want to say in a way it's kind of like the Everybody Loves Raymond episode where he draws a rocket ship on this day. We have a rocket ship on right here. We have a schedule. We have a contract. It's sort of like that.
And the daughter comes in and says, they call it an appointment.
Yeah.
And she says, Daddy, what's an appointment? And she says, it's like going to the dentist.
Sit back, relax. You won't feel a thing. But I don't want to say you lose it entirely, but again, the focus is so much on the child and you're so tired. If you're active in that department right now without a child, congratulations. But it does change.
Yeah.
It does change. And it's not because of a lack of love or I will say lust for your partner. It's not that. It's just you're so fucking tired all the time. And to the point where you have to be, I'll see you when she goes to college.
Well, I also think though that we've connected in new ways. Not to say that type of a connection isn't important or anything like that, but I'm saying, like you said, last night we kind of had an impromptu sort of date night where we literally stood in the kitchen for like 2 hours drinking wine and just talked about our plans for if we want to remodel the house or move or whatever. And I mean, that was like, kind of precious time of like, we literally just had a couple of hours to just talk to each other. And it was it was nice, and it was, another way of connecting. It sounds kind of lame as I'm saying.
I'm not saying it's
true.
It's out the window. It's not out the window. And again, we're pretty much entering in a new sphere of vulnerability talking about this. We don't have to get into a shit ton of detail about it. I'm just saying,
our parents listen to this podcast.
I don't care. How do they know we made a child?
I know.
Look, it's not like hey, you ready to go? Boom, let's go. That's gone. You can't do that anymore because you have a person tugging on you. Daddy, Kermit. You can't, and that's not exactly a turn on, So you make it work though. You work around at that time, the routine, when nap time is, when bedtime is. When your partner is busy doing something else. In my case, sometimes I do podcasts these nights, whatever. You, during a non-pandemic situation, had dance class, or you're going to get your hair done, whatever, as rare as that is. Yeah. You have to anticipate these things. And I guess the most important part is understanding that doesn't mean your partner doesn't love you anymore. Right. It doesn't mean that you aren't numero uno to your partner anymore. It's just, again, everything is about the kid, and you have to actively make that effort more. And I know that sounds kind of bad, saying you have to actively make the effort. No, you kind of do. You have to. No,
that doesn't sound bad at all. That's just the truth. You have to intentionally communicate about it. You have to.
No, I'm talking in terms of intimacy. You have to say, this is important for a healthy marriage. You have to.
Yeah, and I think you have to communicate about it.
Yeah, it's not a chore. It's not like, oh, all right, we have to fuck. It's not like that. It's more like, this is important for a marriage to continue, and I know you're tired, and I'm tired too. And I wouldn't be like, I don't care if you're tired. I'm not that kind of guy.
No, but that's what I mean when I say communicate. You have to understand where your partner is feeling, and like how, if they're feeling disconnected, and that's the type of connection that they are, wanting, and vice versa. Because
as weird as a connection as this may be, everybody knows it's important to a marriage. And if you have a healthy marriage, that's sort of visible to your child, right? She soaks everything up like a sponge, everything. And I know you and I make I don't want to say the effort, but we want her to see an innocent form of intimacy between us. Like, we'll hug, we'll I guess cuddle, or we'll kiss each other in front of her, so she knows. At least we want to teach her, this is what a healthy marriage looks like. This is what a healthy sense of intimacy looks like. This is normal. You shouldn't, obviously, as a child later on, you're going to say, ew, gross. And of course, I get it. But when you reflect back on it, that's what's important to me. When my child reflects on these things, when she's starting to get into serious relationships and she says, okay, yeah, my parents had a really good relationship. They really cared about each other, and they weren't afraid to show it. It's not like we have makeout sessions in front of our child, but we show her, this is what we love each other.
Right.
And when we hug, it's gotten to the point now where she'll come up to our legs and hug us too. So we're like, yes, this is our family. Yep. This is what we're all about.
Yeah.
So
the other sort of, I feel like this is another cliche, but I think it's true. The things that you'll find sexy in your partner are going to be very different after a child. Remember that you're going to talk about the garage?
I was going to talk about the rug cleaner.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
I told you I had a chub. You bought a rug cleaner. I'm pretty turned. Yesterday, I did diagonal lines on the lawn. You were like,
you turned yourself on with that.
But you were like, I'm impressed.
Yeah. And the time that you fixed the garage door?
Kind of.
Temporarily.
I found out how to bypass the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like that. But I'm seriously, like, if there are things that your partner will do, like if they recognize that you really need something, like even on my birthday this year, how you were like, it was your idea. Take her. I'm going to go to my mom's house and you have the whole day to do whatever you want. Like that.
Tell me when to come home.
Stuff like that goes a long way after you have a kid.
Again, we've mentioned this before too. It's true because you don't get a lot of time to do whatever you want. So if these are the little nuggets of gold that you can have between your partner. And again, it seems weird when you're saying, I know what you want, time without me. No, it's more you want time for yourself.
Right.
Take care of yourself. I'll take care of it. And if you can have a dynamic like that where you don't even have to ask and it's sort of a give and take kind of thing, you're ready. You're ready to have children. And again, I'm not the barometer here to tell you or anybody you are definitely ready. I'm just going by experience. There's a very good chance you guys have, listener, if you're listening to this, thinking about having kids, very good chance that you have a different dynamic than us. Very good chance that you have different intricacies than we do. Very good chance that you have different understandings within your marriage that we can't relate to. And that's fine. Just as long as you have a structure, and it doesn't have to be marriage in a traditional sense. It doesn't have to really be any of that. It's more of a trust with your partner that you can raise a human being as a good person. If you have trust in your ability to do that and you love your partner, if you don't love your partner, don't have a kid.
Yeah.
I'll go as far as saying that. But if you have the same goal of raising a good person, I think that's good enough, personally.
Yeah.
Also, we'll close with this. Watch Everybody Loves Raymond. It's a good preparation course of having children. The whole 9 seasons, just watch them. It's a good marriage thing, and it's a good, I think I'm ready to have kids kind of thing. Really, it is.
Well, it'll highlight the things that, I feel like we were pretty positive on this episode, but there's also some things your partner's going to do that's going to annoy the shit out of you.
For sure. And that's a different episode. Yeah. I do think we should do an episode of... No, but I do think we should do an episode of how has your life changed since you've gotten married. We have a good 5 years in that category. We've been together for 13.
Yeah.
So we have a good 5 years of how things have changed. We can call it So You Want to Get Married. But watch Everybody Loves Raymond. I can't recommend that enough. If you're ready to have kids, watch Everybody Loves Raymond. It's not about the kids, but it's about the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely learn to pick your battles once you have a kid.
It's a good course.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to touch on?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully... my friend that asked this question and listeners that are interested in this topic, hopefully we've answered your questions. If you have any more questions specifically that you would like to bring our way, you can do it. Hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/whileshe'snapping. Hit us up on Instagram @whileshe'snapping, Twitter @she'snappingpod. And if you, again, this is a time where you want to make things anonymous. If you want some anonymity,
whileshe'snapping@gmail.com.
Shoot us an email. Ask us any question you want. Nothing is off the table unless it's off the table. So next week, you want to talk about...
I think we have to.
You want to talk about masks?
Yeah.
And conspiracy
when
theories?
we first started this podcast, we were going to try to stay away from the coronavirus type thing because
we
wanted to be
pandemic.
but that was like an emergency episode. Yeah. But I feel like I also think when this first started, we weren't anticipating it to go on as long as it is.
Sure.
And now it's just part of life, and I feel like it's something that we should just talk about it.
All right, we'll talk about masks next week. Remember, mask it or casket. Maybe that will be the title of the episode.
Yeah.
Put my stamp on it. Till next week, guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye.